the central office is trying to make sure that they have control of everything.
Oh, does that surprise you?
No, not at all. Okay, so what am I doing? Oh, I have to get back out of here. Okay, we got about 5 minutes, I guess. I put up my
Yeah. Well, this is all your show.
I know, and you know, most of the time I've ended up doing it totally by myself. So it's nice to have company for a change.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to help much.
Well, I'm sure there'll be questions that you can answer better than me.
I don't know.
I had an interesting co-mentoring session with Michael DeLuca this afternoon.
Oh.
He has a client that wants to start a transition house for people who've been evicted.
Mm.
And she doesn't really have any money. And she doesn't really have a board to speak of. So I told her those are the two things she needs to work on, because she wanted to go out and lease a house. And I said, how are you going to pay for it?
And how are you going to get the permit?
Yeah. And so she said, well, you know, she thought the people would get support from someplace. And I said, I think she needs to start with the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services and see, you know, what they have available, then talk to CHMA and the county.
Bob and I heard this morning, and Sharon, we were talking to the Lee Harvard people. And Richard Goudreau said that Ward 1 has put a moratorium on group homes. The councilman, Joe Jones, there says there's so many uncontrolled activities going on that they need a moratorium, and they need, you know, to work through the issue.
Well, you know, the problem, I don't want to call it a problem. The issue is with homes that have 6 or fewer residents, there's really essentially no controls.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I spoke to this woman, she's a very bright woman. She's been coming to all of our webinars. But she said, I said, what age range, what sex, et cetera, you know, what's your target population look like? And she's done some research to find out what the demographics are of the people who tend to be evicted. Of course, a lot of them have mental health issues. And I said, I would really recommend starting with one sex, because, you know, you got an old man and a young woman. I mean, it lends itself to all kinds of problems, especially if you have people with mental illnesses. So, but then, you know, I asked her, how much money do you have set aside for this? And she said, well, not as much as I would like. And I said, if it's not as much as you would like, it probably is not enough to get started. And, you know, told her the realities of raising money is a serious issue. And even, you know, even if she has clients who can maybe get Section 8 vouchers, for instance, it usually takes months for that to come through and to be approved. So I think she's up for a challenge.
Yeah, you know, we all acknowledge there's tremendous desire for nonprofits and activity, and we're the only game in town that can bring that was Richard's comment to us. Somebody's got to bring rational thought to these entrepreneurs. And they are entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And I told her it's wonderful that you want to do this, but if you're spending your own money to sign a lease, what are you going to do when your money runs out? And how are you going to choose whether you're going to pay money for the lease or you're going to buy food? You're going to drain yourself dry if you spend your own money.
I guess Bob's got a client or two in the same boat. They go out and they get the home before they think through it.
Yeah, and then they have no money and they can't do anything. So.
Yeah. Well, then I had a client, which I passed on now, who got a big lump sum payment from the government as a veteran for injury. And then he goes out and buys it. He has the money, but he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah. Oh, I know that guy. He's the one that wanted to buy a vineyard and
the vineyard,
all sorts of odd things. Yeah.
Very difficult client.
People are crazy sometimes.
Well,
it's amazing.
They mean well, but they're naive. So what do we have signed up for tonight?
Well, we had 95 people.
Oh, wow.
But I did not send out a text today. So
no, I didn't see it. Oh, we'll get 25 or 30.
I figure we'll get about the same number
nice.
that we got before.
It's a great turnout. We should be very happy.
Yeah, I think that's.
Bob and I were at an affair with Cleveland Neighborhood Progress yesterday. I got a commitment from that Laura Gibbons on donating,
Good.
And so that's a go. We'll talk about that tomorrow, but
yeah, well, she's she's doing a couple of webinars and
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well,
Parenthea wants to propose a series of webinars with the Harvard Lee community, repeating all our normal series. And so Bob and I told her, why don't you join our discussion on Thursday and hear what she's doing, because I don't think she understands how challenging, time consuming putting on a series is.
No, I think not. But who knows? We have a lot of them in the can, but it's not like you just keep running them over and over. You have to keep revising them and updating them, and that's a lot of work for somebody. And I had contacted Oleg about doing one on what's the best shopping platform to use, and I got a note back saying that he's just too busy. And I certainly understand that. He does a great job co-mentoring. So.
Yeah, he's done it for me.
Yeah, he's done me too, and he's very, very nice and very knowledgeable. So I am going to start the webinar.
All right, good luck, lady. Anytime you want me to comment, just say something.
Okay, I will do that. Good evening to those of you who are just joining. We're going to wait a few minutes to allow people to come on, and then we'll get started.
Anita, I still have that something that's irrelevant on the screen.
Oh, you don't have my slides?
No.
You don't see my slides? Okay.
I do not.
Good. Okay, it's good to know. So let me. Now, do you see them?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah. Yes, we don't want to start out with something that isn't there.
Well, it's a Lindsay Sims. I don't know.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. And so welcome to everybody who's taking time today to show up and see the fourth of our 5 sessions. This one is on building capacity for your nonprofit. But first, a word about SCORE. If you would like to give us a review, please go to Google Business and do that. We would appreciate it. Okay, our mission is to foster vibrant small business communities, and we do this through mentoring and education. As you all know, SCORE is a 501c3 as well, and we are striving to do the same as you are to help people be successful. And we are well aware that, especially in Cleveland, small businesses are driving the economy, and the more small businesses that are developed, the better our economy will be. So as an entrepreneur, we hope that you have all the resources you need to be successful. So we have a huge network of free volunteers, over 10,000 of us. And so anywhere, any kind of business that you have, we can help you. If we can't help you with our mentors in Cleveland, and we have 90 of those with a very diverse set of backgrounds, we can also call on one of those other 10,000 to help you. So we're bound to have somebody. So we do remote mentoring right now, although some people are doing in-person mentoring. Again, go to our website and sign up for a mentor if you don't have one. We do webinars such as this one. And of course, our resource portal is our website, where there's all kinds of resources to help you get started and keep your business going. Our mentoring is free, and we get funding from the Small Business Administration, and we also get funding from many of the companies in the Cleveland area who want to support small business growth. So, picture of our website, find a mentor. Again, there's a small form, and if you can tell us something about your business and the type of business, it makes it easier for us to give you a mentor who has the same or similar background. Of course, you can take workshops and browse our library. So let's get started with nonprofit capacity building, which is basically how to grow your nonprofit. So what is capacity building? It's really just acquiring the resources that you need to fulfill more of your mission and grow your business. So these resources can be physical, such as a building, equipment, supplies. They can be human resources, board members, employees, volunteers. They can be financial, could be intellectual property. So all of these things come together to help your business grow. Now, before you think about where you're going, you kind of have to know where you are now. So what are you building on? So first of all, we want to do sort of a bit of planning. So if we talk about planning, there are really 2 types of planning. One is strategic planning, and the other is business planning. Business planning basically is, what did we do this year? What are we going to do? Maybe we're going to increase our business 5% next year. So it's carrying on business as we've been doing in the past. Strategic planning is more, what can we do differently to make our business better or serve our clients better? So it's similar but different. And so good planning gives you a roadmap that you can use to measure how you're doing. Are you meeting your goals or not? If you're not, you can decide, what do we need to do differently to make that happen? Sometimes you grow faster than you had predicted. Gosh, what does that mean? Maybe we have to go out and hire more people, recruit more volunteers. So if you have a good roadmap, it really gives you confidence in how your business is growing. So start out by relooking at your vision statement. And your vision statement is basically, if you are successful as a business, what is going to be the ideal outcome? So say I manufacture skis, my vision might be that everybody who skis owns a pair of my skis. But in light of the fact that we've had this tremendous COVID pandemic, many of you had had to rethink your business. And so rethink your vision statement and sit down with your board and go over your vision. Has it changed? Is it different? Is it still the same? And then relook at your mission statement for the same reason. Are the things maybe you need to tweak? But make sure that it's solid, you're still going in the same direction. And then review your organizational values. That's important. This is, you as head of your organization have to live those values. So make sure that they are values that you truly believe in and that you can show leadership in. Then you want to identify some long-term goals. And we call these SMART goals because they need to be strategic, they need to be measurable. They also need to be achievable. You don't want something that's pie in the sky that nobody ever can achieve. And they need to be relevant. They need to be goals that are really going to help your business grow in the direction that you want. And they need to be timely. So it's not something that's going to happen in 3 years or 5 years, but something that's you're working on in the next 6 months to a year. So then do a situation analysis, or it's what we call a SWOT analysis, looking at your weaknesses. You know, maybe you have some gaps in staffing or board members or something, so identify those. Also, recognize your strengths. How are you different from other organizations in the way that your business shows growth and potential prosperity? So what opportunities are there? If you look at the environment, are things changing? Are they coming up, things coming up that maybe you could incorporate in your business? And you also want to look at external threats. You know, maybe you have a nice little healthcare business and the Cleveland Clinic decides to open up a business that's exactly the same as yours and they pour money into it. That's a real threat. So you want to identify any of the potential threats so that you can determine, how should I deal with these now, and instead of let's wait and see what happens. And then once you have decided that you have specific goals, you want to develop strategies on how are we going to get there. So if we know where we are now and we decide we are going to go and accomplish certain things, what are the steps we need to get there? And that's really what we're talking about tonight. You know, how do we get from here to there? And and make a successful business. So, whoops. Let me go back a minute here. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm afraid my finger hit the wrong button. Okay, so some of the capacity building strategies that will help you would be to increase revenue, recruit more volunteers, or maybe you want to think about attracting more in-kind contributions. Or maybe you just simply want to expand the work that you're doing, or improve productivity, as that's an important aspect too. So to generate more revenue, why would you want to generate more revenue? Well, obviously, if you want new programs, you need money to pay for it. Also, if you want to expand programs, maybe you want to increase your internal operating capacity. Maybe you've been running on a shoestring staff and need to beef it up so you can actually give more to your clients. And maybe you need to increase the number of funders. And we talked about this at our last session, that depending on one or two major donors is pretty risky. It's much better to have 10 donors that give you $1,000 each than to have one donor who gives you $10,000. And then lastly, you might want to generate more revenue just to create an operating reserve and have a little pad of money to make it a little more comfortable so that you're not out scrambling for money all the time. So where do nonprofits get their revenue? And we've talked about this in previous sessions. About half comes from fees for services. And if you can charge for your services, that's a fantastic thing. It guarantees you an income stream, and that's a great thing. 25% comes from the government and about 25% from philanthropy. So, but the big thing is individuals. 84% of the money that most of the small businesses we deal with comes from individuals. 70% of households donate, and the average donation is pretty close to $2,000, which is pretty impressive. Again, if you, excuse me just a minute. I'm sorry, my dog is wanting to be part of the program. So if you have a possibility of installing fees for what you're doing, that's wonderful, and you should really consider it. I know that a lot of nonprofits feel that they can't charge for things that they do, but in fact, if you can possibly set fees, you can always do a sliding scale. But again, if you can charge a fee, that does give you a guaranteed income stream, and that makes your life a lot easier. Of course, you can write proposals if you can find potential companies that will give grants for the type of business that you have. Then by all means, you should be scrambling and writing those proposals. You can also conduct an annual fundraising drive. And a lot of organizations do that. You might want to hire a company that will do that for you. Sometimes it's not an easy thing to do. And if you're not familiar with it, it might be helpful to have someone who can help you with that. You can also hold an annual fundraising event. That can be a little bit tricky unless you're a pretty well-known organization, because sometimes if you don't have a good turnout, the cost of the event is going to be more than you bring in. So be very careful when you decide to hold an annual event that you can raise enough money to cover your costs and then some. Make a special effort to develop major donors. And I can't emphasize too much how valuable this is, that if you can find donors who will continue to support you, that's a fantastic thing. And you should really go out of your way to groom those donors, praise them, make them aware of how valuable they are, make them aware of how the money they donate to you is being used. So really take advantage of them and make sure that they know that how valuable they are to you. And then as we spoke in the last session, consider planned giving and capital campaigns. Those, again, are pretty reliable and definitely worth considering. So all nonprofits generally start out with friends and family as the inner circle of donors. You like to have your board donate. You like to have users and their families donate. And then as you become aware, you grow in awareness and people understand who you are and what you're trying to do, you'll get interested parties, you'll get parents, volunteers, families of users, maybe some of your vendors. Again, so you want to work on them. And then again, as you become more confident and more settled in the community, you begin then to go out to the community, to foundations, other businesses. So you want to keep working to grow your circle of donors. Okay, strategy number 2 would be to recruit more volunteers. And why do we want volunteers? Well, they're economical. We don't have to pay them a salary, and that's great. Sometimes you do certainly recognize them by having annual dinners and passing out recognition certificates and so forth. But not having to pay a salary is wonderful. And generally, most people who volunteer are really passionate about what you're passionate about. They care about your organization. They're very good advocates. They're ambassadors for your organization. And so definitely they're some of your best resources. And sometimes they will be good donors as well. Here are just a few facts about volunteers. About half of Americans regularly volunteer, and 150 some hours a year. The ideal would be to have about 10 volunteers for each employee. So when you're thinking about it, aim for that. They're about 33% of the total nonprofit effort. And generally boards and board committees members are not paid. They're volunteers. And then you may have unpaid staff, which those are volunteers. So why do people volunteer? I guess think about why you volunteer. It's usually because you care about the organization and you really want to help. Many volunteers want to be part of the community and contribute to the community, and they want to participate in a meaningful activity, which is why you should think about how you use your volunteers. Some want to really, maybe you have a very interesting project that somebody wants to learn, develop a skill, or maybe they've been working in a job that really doesn't utilize the skills that they have, but they can use them in your organization. Or maybe they just simply want to be recognized for what they do. Or for many older people, it's an opportunity to interact with other people and to feel a sense of camaraderie. So, how do you recruit volunteers? Well, first of all, you want to think about, what do I need volunteers for? So you want to make a list. Maybe you need them to act as a receptionist, maybe do administrative work. Maybe you need somebody who can contact donors for you. So just make a list of all the duties that you need to have done. And they can be things that normally in other businesses, you might have an employee do them. Keep in mind that volunteers don't necessarily have to be envelope stuffers. They can actually do work and feel more engaged if they have real work to do. So publish the list of what you need so that everybody who works for you and the board, everybody knows what you're looking for. And oftentimes they have friends or family who might be interested in participating. So here's just sort of a sample. If we're looking for leadership, say, we want to have at least 2 people who have that skill. So if one of them leaves, we're not up the creek. So you want to look at, well, where do I need? Looks like we need somebody to back up Jane, perhaps. And that would be in financial management. Or we need a second person anyway in financial management. So then we would go out and sort of network and hope that we can find people that would be able to fill those gaps. So use all of your networks, use your social media, work with other nonprofits. There are lots of nonprofits, and if you network, there may be people in other organizations that would also be interested in volunteering for your organization. And then think about actually using a guidebook for recruiting volunteers. Write down what process you're using so that everybody's on the same page. So we know that people who volunteer are not motivated by financials. They're more interested in other aspects. So they want gratification. They want to be recognized, what we talked about. So understanding why they volunteer should help you figure out how to engage them and get them involved in your organization. So again, you should think of volunteers in the same way you think of your employees, and you should treat them the same way. You should expect, if they volunteer and they say that they're going to do something, that they actually do it. So anyway, volunteers are certainly an important aspect in your organization, and treat them again like employees and engage them, give them good work to do, make them feel useful. So let's go on to strategy option number 3, which is attracting more in-kind donations. So in-kind donations are generally used to replace something so that you don't have to pay for it. In other words, you can use your revenue for other expenses. So typically there are things like food, clothing, household products, office supplies and equipment. But you might think about office space or meeting or classroom space. You know, lots of times schools, churches, other organizations that have space available at times that they're not using it may allow you to use it free of charge. So you should ask. Many professionals will give you free service if you make them understand that you're a nonprofit and what you're trying to do. You might get some programs and services from other nonprofits. Again, maybe some of the services that you have would be helpful to other nonprofits, and they might exchange with you. So if you need something, you can always ask for it. You know, it doesn't hurt to say, can you help me? And they might say no, but if you don't ask, you won't get it. So then to do more good work. So think about, is there a way to increase the services and products that you're offering your clients? Sometimes there's an advantage to joining with another nonprofit so that you can expand your services and they can expand their services. If you work together, you can provide more for your clients. In general, the whole idea of a nonprofit is to provide some type of service to people who are in need. So you always want to keep your customers or your clients at the center of your thinking and your planning. What is it you can do for them that's going to be better than what you're doing now? So if you understand how your clients work and what their needs are, you can begin to design some additional services and benefits that you can provide to them. But when you develop a program, you want to make sure that everybody in your organization understands what it is, that the people who are working directly with your clients have the opportunity to provide that service and make decisions about it. And you also need to make sure that you have developed some metrics for measuring whether it's successful or not. And then at one point when you've implemented it, you measure it, you evaluate it. If it's working, you can continue and expand it. If it's not working, you want to make sure that you decide we're not going to continue. Don't let something go on that isn't working. It's costing you resources and it's not providing what you want to provide to your customers. So you want to think about what can I do for my clients that will keep them coming back, if that's the type of service that I'm offering. You know, recruiting new clients is much more costly than keeping the clients that you already have. it also puts a limit on how much effort you have to put on each individual client. And so again, you want to have an implementation plan, an ability to measure it, and then if it's not working, you want to have an exit strategy. So here's just a little cartoon talking about how do we improve our customer service, and lots of different options here. Maybe make 10 the only legible choice on the survey. But Amy says, deliver a better customer service. And of course, the boss says, let's keep ideas to things we can actually control. So, you know, something to think about. So, because you're a nonprofit does not mean that you shouldn't be productive and that you shouldn't think about improving your productivity as one of your strategies, because if you can improve your productivity, that frees up either human or financial resources to do more, and that's important. So when you think about any program, they often last about 5 years. It's for a number of reasons. Technology changes, people's interests change, people's abilities change. So you have to recognize if you're doing a program, you have to keep thinking about how is the environment impacting? Do we need to change it? Is new technology coming in? So how is that going to impact your organization? So productivity is really your output, what you deliver, and what is it costing in resources. So you can use your strategic planning process to say what particular improvements can we undertake. And usually it's best if you can work with the people who actually do the job. They're the ones who know more than anybody what it is that can be changed to make it more effective and more efficient. So we discussed how strategic planning can be used to define an approach to build capacity. And we talked about 5 different areas: increasing revenue, recruiting volunteers, getting donations, doing more work, and increasing productivity. So what do we do about that? So Peter Drucker says plans are only good intentions unless they immediately degenerate into hard work. So you can have all kinds of wonderful plans. And I've seen lots of strategic plans that go into a drawer and are never seen again until it's time to do strategic planning again. So it's important, if you spend the time to do strategic planning with your board and your employees, that you then decide, how are we going to implement those things that we decided we're going to do? So let's talk about what skills it takes to implement our strategic plan. And those would be creating alignment, leading, managing, publishing, and building alliances. So when we talk about creating alignment, that really means to impose the values that and the mission and the vision of your organization in everything that you do. So your business plan, your strategic plan reflect that vision, mission, and values. And so your policies really flesh out how you're implementing those policies and procedures. Your job descriptions and your hiring practices also incorporate your vision and values and mission. So when you hire somebody, you want people who adhere to those values and support your mission. When you do your performance planning and your coaching, they should be based on those values and mission, just like everything else, your incentive and your rewards and your consequences. So everything flows from your vision, values, and mission in everything in your organization. So as the leader, again, if you believe in the values and mission and you live them, that permeates your organization and gives substance and confidence to the people in the organization. So as a leader, you need to be an effective advocate for your programs. You want to use the facts and data and tell success stories that motivate people and show how to do it. You want to recognize your employees. You want a good leader inspires people to do things, encourages them, leads them forward. So you want people always to know what's going on in the organization, provide them, be as transparent as possible, give them indicators of what you're doing. Like in SCORE, for instance, every month we go over what we're doing, how many clients we've talked to, how many webinars we've done, how many of everything that we're doing. But it's important to have everybody in the organization know how you're doing as an organization. So everything that you do with your meetings, your writings, your phone calls, it's always promoting what you're doing in the organization. Again, because as the leader, you want to inspire people to be self-motivated and to contribute to the organization. So we want to create a culture of openness and be present, be around, talk to your organization, to your members, to your board, know your organization. So again, be willing to hear what other people have to say and be willing to change, understand, again, the sort of thing we've been through the last couple of years with the pandemic made it impossible to just keep your eyes closed and your nose to the grindstone and keep going. You had to be aware, to be open, and to make changes. And another skill is managing. Now, a manager is different from a leader. You can be both, but a manager's responsibility is to see that the work gets done. The leader is inspirational, where the manager is the action person, making sure that when people commit to something that it gets done. So you want to communicate your strategic plan, you want to hold people accountable, and you want to identify where things need to change. So it always helps if you can organize teams. And this is where your board can be very helpful. Again, you want to communicate your organizational results, and you want to practice managing by walking around. That was pretty popular back in the 1980s, but it still works. If you are present, your employees and your volunteers and your board know where you are, what you're doing, that you're on top of things. That's a good manager. Again, you want to celebrate success and make people recognize that they're doing good work. And then you should manage difficult employees immediately. Don't let something go on and on if it isn't working. Because if you have a difficult employee and you don't deal with it, other employees figure, well, if that person can get away with it, or I'm doing the work and not being recognized for it, it's just not good for your organization. And again, publishing relentlessly, we say, because in a nonprofit, it's so important to make people aware of what you're doing. Not only that, you need to make the people that you're serving aware, make them aware that you're existing, make them aware of what you do, how you do it, how they interface with you. So you need to keep publishing. And then for your donors and your board and your staff, again, you need to keep them informed. You need to encourage them. You need to let your donors know what's going on, how their money's being used, what opportunities there are going to be for them to support you in the future. So you want to constantly keep your name out in social media, if you can do press releases. And what do you publicize? Well, mission, goals, strategy, and programs. Success stories are always wonderful. If you have success stories, put them in your social media, on your website, because they inspire other people to use your services. They also inspire donors to give you money. And then, especially for your employees and your board, keep, again, going back to your strategic plan and showing how you're measuring against that strategic plan. So you want to always say, here was our goal, we met it or we exceeded it, or sometimes you won't meet it, what we're doing to make sure that we catch up. So also you want to build alliances with other organizations. Again, one way to do that, if you do networking and participate with other organizations, it helps to build your board. And I think, Bob, you can probably speak to this better than I can, because you've been involved with so many different organizations and alliances. So maybe you have something you'd want to say about that.
Well, the important thing is, by working with other organizations, you're elevating your own organization, and you want to align with other organizations of the same stature or higher stature. And it just, success breeds success. And when people know of you, that's how you're going to get other people interested in your organization, and you can develop relationships that will be synergistic. We have lots of experiences on doing that. And if there's any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Yeah, I was just thinking about in the last couple of years how we have expanded into the CDCs and working with other nonprofits to try to help everybody's clients.
Yeah, it's not a zero-sum game. And what you'll find out is other nonprofits are in the same boat as you are. And it may raise your boat for a while until you get up with them. But once you get acknowledged, then a lot of people would depend on you. And it's just a continuous circle of activity with other similar organizations, and SCORE certainly now is in the mainstream in Northeastern Ohio of the nonprofit circle.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody, and I also would say up front, if you do not have your 501c3 yet, ally with somebody that has it and get you off to the ground.
Yeah.
That's also a good strategy.
Yeah, and this one, work with you to fundraise. If you collaborate on grants, sometimes you'll find that you would like to respond to a grant, but you're missing a component. However, if you collaborate with another 501c3, you can work together and apply for the grant. So really think about, how can I work with other organizations to not only benefit my clients, but to benefit my organization? And then it might enable you to offer additional services because you can refer your clients to the people that you're collaborating with. So you might get donations of space and equipment and supplies if you're working with another or group of nonprofits that might have those things that they can allow you to use. You might get client referrals because, again, maybe your organizations are synergistic. You might sponsor events and programs together. Like we, in SCORE, we do a lot of webinars with other organizations, with libraries. We're doing them with the CDCs. So again, it improves your programs and reaches a greater audience. And again, it builds credibility for your organization. So if we want to change an old system to a new system, what are the ways that we can implement it? So you might want to think, where is the greatest need? And what strategies that we talked about will have the greatest impact? And then, if you have defined specific strategies and programs, you might go out to your major contributors and give them the opportunity to fund those particular efforts. And a lot of times, again, donors like to be recognized. And if they can say, well, I was instrumental in making this happen, and they can point to a particular program that might encourage them to donate. So if you have adequate staffing, and you can use your board members too, create a capacity building strategy team, because they can work to identify which opportunity do we feel is the most important. So they can prioritize, which will help you set your strategic direction. So you want to involve people from all levels of the organization. So I said, a lot of times the board members will want to lead these teams, but you also want to make sure that you have the people that are actually working with the clients as part of the team, so they have good input. And then you want to develop action teams, because they're the ones that are going to make those strategies become actions. And you want to set capacity building goals. If you increase by 15% a year, you're up to 50% in 3 years. And I think, Bob will agree with me. We have made amazing strides in SCORE by setting really breakthrough goals and meeting them. And oftentimes it happens if you set a goal that seems like a real stretch, the team really works together to make it happen. So again, we go back to doing SMART goals. When you break down your strategies into specific actions, you want them to be very specific. You want them to be measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So you develop your action plans with those in mind. And then you want to have a monthly accountability session. So you want to make sure, here's the task, here's the goal that we set. Did we make the goal? If we didn't, what do we need to do differently to make sure that we meet it next month? Do we need more people? Do we need more resources? And always communicate what's happening. You know, so maybe you want to post it in your organization. Maybe you want to even put it on social media so people know that you're reaching your strategic goals. Okay, so let's take a quick look at what we've gone over. First, you want to do an organizational assessment. So here's where we are. You know your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And then from that, you can say, let's do our strategic planning to determine where we want to go. Then we have to develop strategies on how are we going to get there. We establish teams. They identify tasks, tactics, and assign responsibility. And again, when you do your action planning, not only should you assign responsibility to a particular person or team, but you also have to recognize that they may need resources, and make sure that they have the resources needed to accomplish the tasks that you've set them to do. And then, of course, you want a time frame so that you can hold them accountable. And then when you implement, you want to continually evaluate where you are and whether you're being successful or not. And then do an annual review and see where are we? Did we meet our strategic goals for this year? If we did, that's wonderful. Then we want to maybe stretch a little further next year. And if we didn't do as well as we had hoped, again, what can we do differently to make it work? So always keep examining what you're doing and making your staff part of your decision making. So again, you want to visit our website at cleveland.score.org. Again, if you do go and you want to set up a session with a mentor, please mention what business you're interested in, or if you're in business, what it is, so it will make it easier for us to arrange a mentor for you. And then, of course, we have all those wonderful additional resources. So, questions?
Well, Anita, there was a question on the best way to start a press release.
Well, maybe you want to answer that.
Yeah, let me jump in there. And unfortunately, that's where fortunately, have a volunteer with expertise in advertising and marketing is extremely important. People who have done it in their careers. We are very fortunate at SCORE to have that, and they have the connections. If you're starting from scratch, it's not easy to get. You can write a press release, but you're not going to get anybody to cover it. And so, really, I mean, you can hire somebody to do it, but the ideal thing is to have a volunteer with experience in that area.
Yep, that's absolutely the best way to do it. And again, one of the things what we've tried to emphasize through all of our sessions is how important it is to have a board that contributes to your organization, that you hire. If you don't have administrative skills, recruit somebody who does. If you're not a financial whiz, recruit somebody who is. If you're not a marketing person, find a board member who is. If you're not a fundraiser, you need one. So there are so many functions that have to happen, whether you have somebody who's an expert or not. And if you don't have somebody else, that's you. You have to perform all those functions. So the better you are at recruiting a board, the better your organization is going to function, and the more likely it is to be a successful, long-term, sustainable organization. So I think you would agree, Bob.
Absolutely. But I would also say in today's environment, the word press release has a different connotation in a universal. It could be a blog statement. It could be a Twitter. It could be a Facebook statement. There's lots of ways to get messages out. And it's not just a traditional press release that goes out to newspapers and newswires.
Okay, well, I don't see any questions. So I think we've worn them down or so. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate your spending some time with us and hope that it was a bit helpful. And thank you, Bob, for spending the hour with us.
Excellent job, Anita. Take care.
We'll see you on Thursday. I guess we're going to be talking about grants.
Right,
so
correct.
We will, let me just see. Oh, good. Well, thank you, Trishelle. We hope you'll come and enjoy the last one as well. So
great job.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.